So let's begin. Let's just dive right in. And I want to invite you to close your eyes if you feel comfortable with that, because the inner world tends to come alive more when the eyes are closed. But in all things today and always, I really hope that you're going to keep yourself comfortable and do anything that works best for you. So if gently opening the eyes and keeping a soft gaze works better for you, then please take care of yourself in that way and in all ways. You'll see me closing my eyes because I definitely access stillness best with my eyes closed. But I'll be right here with you, and I'm hoping to meet you in the stillness. So we'll start with a kind of guided meditation, a guided experience and exploration. And after about 45 minutes max, we'll transition into a more active conversation. So I hope you have fun and stay comfortable. And speaking of comfort, physical comfort is paramount because it's really hard to relax and enjoy the stillness if you're feeling discomfort physically. So take a few moments now to settle. Anything that you can do to lengthen your spine will serve the processes that we're going to be exploring today. So I sometimes like to actually pull my hips out so I'm sitting more firmly on my sits bones. And that gives some lift to my spine. Oh, and lets my breath be fuller. Stillness is such a nuanced, mysterious thing. As I hope to explore, it's not really even a thing. And it's always there. So as your physical form starts settling into rest and quiet, notice that all the manifest activities of your body are taking place within nothing. We tend to pay attention to the movements, the physical movement of the body, the beating of the heart, fluttering of your eyelids. You might even consciously initiate some motion in your hand or wiggling your toes. Or simply feel the breath filling your chest. And then leaving you. And notice how none of these activities could enter your awareness if there wasn't a backdrop or a spaciousness in which those activities can arise. Can you sense into that? How could you be aware of the foreground, the activity, the thoughts, for example? How could you even notice a thought if the thought didn't have a context, a space, or a background in which to be the foreground. Notice that you do not need to stifle any of these activities. You don't need to make them stop in order to also be aware of this non-activity. Just like the furniture in the room wouldn't have a place to be if there weren't space in the room for the furniture to appear within. So whatever objects of awareness are present for you right now, they could be perceptions, emotions, thoughts, physical activity, whatever you happen to be aware of. Don't do anything with those objects of perception. Simply do a little sidestep of awareness and orient more to the space that those objects of awareness appear within. Now I'm calling it space or spaciousness because I'm very kinesthetic in my own awareness. I experience it kinesthetically. You may be more visual. You may actually see in your inner eye that the manifestations that appear to you visually appear within a very pristine, uncluttered backdrop, kind of like clouds that appear within the sky. But our minds are used to paying attention only to the weather, the clouds, and not to the sky that's always there, the backdrop of the clouds. You may actually hear the silence, and you notice that the sounds are taking place within the silence. And you could not distinguish my words if there weren't quiet, periods of quiet that would allow me to breathe and vocalize and for you to hear the distinct words that are manifesting within this backdrop of silence. So it may come through for you in a variety of ways. And that's why it's really tricky for me to point to. But for the next little bit, I'm going to lead you through two orientations to stillness, and I'm going to continue to call it stillness, but now you know that it may come through for you a different way. So these two orientations I'm going to call intentional, like a volitional orientation to stillness. I'm going to offer you some strategies for attuning to the stillness. And second, I'm going to try to convey to you how stillness can actually be a resource for you, that stillness can come through, it can embrace you, and that as you reach out to it volitionally, it can actually come back, reach back for you, and serve you in so many ways. I hope we might explore some of those ways in the conversation, but it will augment your health, help you expand your perceptual capacities, bring you effortlessly in line with your true nature, with yourself, and hopefully help you feel really good and established in the benefits of, established in the stillness, so that you can experience the benefits for yourself. All right, so let's start to develop and unpack this first orientation to stillness that I'm calling strategic. And the 3 strategies that I'd love to explore with you now, I'm going to call grounding, expanding, and allowing. Ground in the body, expand awareness beyond the body, and allow whatever is to be just as it is. Okay? So let's take each of these. Let's start with grounding. My premise is that by settling into the body, inhabiting your body, everything else will unfold organically. It's great because there's very little that you have to do. The trick is that you have to do less. This is about skillful non-doing. So what does that mean to skillfully come into the body and establish presence in the physical form of the body? Well, I want to encourage you to come so deeply into the body that you actually enter the deepest core, the core channel deep within, between your head and the base of your body at the pelvic floor. And I feel you doing this, so I feel it has an effect. As you establish presence in the core channel of the body, you make things happen. And to begin with, how should I say this? You're making contact with the therapeutic agency, the agency that actually made the body. And the reason I'm stumbling with my words is that it sounds so strange to say. But osteopaths who invented this kind of work, they have taught us, and it's palpable for each of us to feel, that the primitive streak, this vertical line that appears in the jelly mass when you were just a few weeks post-conception, that vertical axis actually is the mechanism through which your physical form originated and then developed and later has been sustained throughout your life. So the great thing is that even though that was quite a bunch of words, you can experience the truth of this for yourself by very simply bringing awareness deep into that core channel, and notice that as you breathe into it, there will be places between the back of your forehead all the way down through your brain, your throat, your chest. Breathe with me. Your solar plexus, belly, pelvis, right down to the pelvic floor, and further down into the earth. If you have developed those capacities, good. So you will notice there are places along this line that are like magnets for your awareness. Sometimes because they're open and full and well established, and you will enjoy hanging out there. You can shine your inner flashlight around that place, the one that draws you most. You can tap into it kinesthetically by feeling your way. Come a little further back, everyone. It's not so much toward the front, it's very far back, this midline, deep in the core. You may also notice that there are places along that midline that are more obscure, that might be tangled up with feeling or memories. Just know that there's absolutely no reason to push. The premise here is that this intelligence is alive in us. This stillness can actually help evolve us, enrich us, enliven the way that we live in our body, and we can trust it. And again, you don't have to take my word for it. So find a place that feels good to you, a place within that's comfortable, and allow your presence to saturate that place. And we are calling that grounding in the body. Beautiful. The second strategy that we're pursuing in this exploration is expansion. Once we've come in, it can be more effortless to come out. Once we inhabit the interior landscape of the body, then there's a natural process of breathing out beyond the body. So you're still inside, and now you start to also feel the air around the outside of your skin. Or you may see the air become more alive. You may feel it become more dense. Stillness can take different expressions through the body, and by coming into the body and then allowing awareness to expand beyond the body, we help encourage these different qualities of stillness to manifest. Again, you do very little. The less you do, the more this breathes within you. The more you ground in the body, the more you're receptive to opening out. The stillness will actually do its thing. in a very, hopefully, pleasurable way. As awareness expands, stillness expands. So you've come into form between that rich, fertile territory at the core of you, all the way down to your toes, up to your head. You're inhabiting it, illuminating it with presence. And then you're allowing that presence to breathe beyond your skin. Now here's the thing. It sounds like I'm asking you to do quite a lot there, and most of us have no idea how to do these things. It's inherent. And this brings us to the third strategy, which is allowing. Facilitating this movement of awareness by doing less. It's a natural state. Stillness is a natural state. And the less you do, the more you rest and breathe, the more it can enrich you, and you can find out more and more about it without looking to anyone else's authority. So let's pause. I'll be quiet for a few minutes now, and I invite you to keep returning awareness to the deepest core between your head and your pelvis. That's grounding. Allowing that going inness to rebound with a natural going outness, a kind of tidal force. As you draw awareness in, you'll notice that you can simply bring awareness out to occupy any amount of space. Does that make sense? You might notice your whole body coalescing. You might notice that you're inhabiting a space of the room. You might be out with the clouds, the stars, the horizon. Or you might simply be in a deep, clear, transcendent space of stillness where no activity is present at all. It doesn't matter. You're not trying to make anything happen. Our intentions are purely to ground, to breathe, to rest, to expand as far as awareness is comfortable without trying. Simply notice how comprehensive is awareness. And to allow, to let everything be as simple as it is. Allowing things to arise, allowing them to pass. Ground, expand, allow. Beautiful. As awareness grows, stillness also grows. And stillness can take different expressions through the body, the same way that water can take different expressions. A pond, a lake, or the ocean, and they're all composed of water, and the water can move, it can take up different patterns and waves, and the water can also be utterly transparent and still. That's a very close analogy to what I'm calling stillness. Stillness can take on these different flavors. It can actually be a tremendous resource for you. So in this next part of our meditation, I'm going to lead us away from that more intentional approach to stillness and see if we can invoke different qualities of stillness. And you'll notice that, again, you don't need to do anything beyond notice, beyond cultivating perception. The stillness will actually come to you the same way if a body of water is very, very quiet and still. It allows you to notice whatever is below the surface. And that's what we're doing here. We're allowing our body to come into a very deep state of rest. We're allowing awareness to settle. And then whatever there is to be known will make itself known to you. And it will be very obvious, and there will be very little for you to do. It's actually a condition of very skillful non-doing. So I use those metaphors, pond, lake, and ocean. And they turn out to be quite apt as different expressions of stillness that can occur through the body. Let's explore each one very briefly, and just know that you're not trying to make it happen. You're just kind of checking the words against your own experience, because you cannot dial up a particular flavor. It has to come to you. So what we're doing is to instigate or encourage a quality of receptivity, and then notice what happens. So bring awareness as effortlessly as you can into the body. Are the banks of your body apparent? If your body is a pond, are you aware of the container, what I'm calling the banks? Do you notice a sense of wholeness in which presence is contained within the soma, within the physical form? Is your body operating as one? Or does it feel more boundaried and splintered and fragmented? You know, most people in our culture have their mind isolated from their body. Their mind is up in a control tower up at the top, and it's split from the body. That's as though their pond has a dam in it, or a bridge that's separating mind and body, or separating neck from elbow. Just notice what's true for you. Good. And the more you open and establish the core channel of stillness within the body, the more your body-mind will know how to operate as one unit of function. And this will enhance your physical and emotional well-being profoundly. It will give you access to the natural organic health that stillness can bring. Your body will still be a tissue body. It will still be dense, but it will be one. So notice how we have just named a texture or a substance, the dense tissue body, and we've just named a spatial dimension, oneness within the skin. And I'd like to offer a tempo to accompany those attributes. A tempo and a state of consciousness that may be relaxed, but it tends to be alert. And it tends to move at the pace of our culture, which is fairly rapid. Yet it's already an enhancement. If we're coming from a fragmented state of consciousness, to actually become one whole body is profound. So if you find yourself in this condition of embodiment, the pond, more power to you. That's fantastic. Enjoy. For some of us, the pond actually feels like a condensation. It feels like a narrowing, because our awareness is more inclined to expand wider than the physical form. And this is not strange at all. In our culture, we speak frequently about fields of activity, radio waves that move back and forth, your microwave. All kinds of objects in our culture are known to have waves that permeate the body but travel beyond. Light. So we're starting to experience our body in this work as a light body. We're starting to experience the way that waves can flow freely, both within and without our physical form. The field of activity that the body is very happy within is actually wider than the pond, wider than the soma. It travels between the midline, the core, and out beyond the physical body at least a foot or two, maybe out further into the room. And the state of stillness that accompanies this expansion beyond the body, beyond the physical body, I'm going to call that here the lake. The lake. So again, the same way water can be still or water can move, I'm encouraging you to just tap into the sense of presence that brims beyond the pond. So the water, the stillness is deeply within, but brims over into the room. And the tempo slows. The same way when you drop under the surface of the water, you feel some pressure or a tensile density. If you go swimming, things slow down. And when you drop into the water of your lake, you might notice that your thoughts slow, your body activity slows, like your heartbeat, and actually any particular sense of a heart or lungs or your physical form, those individual parts might actually recede in your awareness altogether. As awareness expands out into the room, you might feel very gooey, very caramel, like you're taking on a heavier quality, just like you've dropped under the surface of the water. And the stillness that accompanies this transition is even more potent, brings you a greater sense of connection with your environment, with other people and living beings. The substance is the goo body. The tempo is slower, almost playful, like there's enough time. Time has slowed. And the spatial dimension is between the core and out into the room. These are descriptions of stillness as a lake, embodied stillness as it manifests in a more expanded version. You can't make it happen. But by efforting less, by allowing without trying to stop anything, without trying to make anything happen, how strange, things start happening. It's crazy. So your job here is simply to notice, how is stillness appearing? It may slot neatly into the words I'm using, or you may be feeling something completely different. It actually doesn't matter. What matters is that you breathe and rest and feel. Cultivating this state that we call in my work the neutral. Allowing what's true to be present without grasping or pushing away. In these final minutes of our meditation together, I want to introduce the last embodied state of stillness that I'll speak about here, which is the ocean. The ocean. As awareness expands beyond even the room, you can bring in a very delicate, immense, fathomless field of awareness. As vast as the ocean, even more potent for healing, wisdom, perception. Yeah. Here we slow down to a paradoxical condition where time doesn't exist in an ordinary way. Paradoxical, eternal. And awareness stretches out in its fullness to what you might call the horizon, the very edge of the known. You could call this the universal body. The substantial quality of the lake has given rise to something ineffably light and radiant. Some people see it as an iridescence or a shimmering. Some people feel it as a vibration. Very little substance at all, and very little motion. Any motion has slowed down. If you feel the motion associated with this quality of stillness, it takes almost a minute to travel toward you from the periphery, and almost a minute, 50 seconds, to stream back toward the horizon. If stillness is appearing in your awareness in any way, just allow yourself to be absorbed fully in its presentation. It doesn't have to appear in any particular way. Until the bell rings, just notice whatever qualities of activity or stillness are making themselves known to you. And consciously invite the beauty and power of stillness to saturate your field of awareness in any of its manifestations. I want to invite any comments or questions. That was a lot for one exploration, and I'm curious how it landed with you all.
Hi all, this is Nico.
Hi, Nico. Great to see you.
Greetings. Good to see you. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. That was great. At some time, I would say earlier, I saw like a purple, bluish light, which was nice, which I haven't seen in a while. So that was nice to see that. um, yeah, I definitely sense a lot of spaciousness, which is really good. Um, I really love what you said about allowing stillness to come to you. That was really beautiful. Yeah. So I love that phrase. That saying thank you.
Thanks so much, Nico. Yeah, I mean, who in our culture is not, well, I'll speak for myself. Sometimes I feel like things are moving so fast that I'm just frantic for rest and to be still. And it's so easy to forget, I think, that actually by coming in and stopping, the stillness can catch up with us. It longs to occupy us, to possess us in the most delicious way. And the more I chase after it, the more elusive it seems. But if I actually just bring myself in, then it knows where to find me. It's like, oh yeah, this is here. Here. The same way now is a portal into depth and stillness, here is a portal. So, allowing it to embrace me, allowing it to catch up with me, then we can really experience it more fully. And that blue, Nico, I haven't heard you talk about that blue in a long time.
Yeah,
Um,
it's been a really long time. It's really interesting because that was kind of one of the my introduction to the work. The very first session I received quite a few years ago, and then it was it blew me away. It blew my mind, that experience, and then I was really chasing after it, and then that chase became stressful. So it's just really nice to be in a place where it's more allowing and just having anything come through and being completely okay with that. That's just really a great place to be.
and it's just such a good example of how we tend to experience stillness in these wildly different ways depending on how we're hooked up perceptually. And so you're naming a way that someone could be aware of the presence of blue, and that blueness for you is actually the way your system is organizing the experience of stillness. Or I don't know, I mean, what I didn't get to in the meditation is how stillness can be more than an experience. And I would call that the stillness as a mirror. Um, the no thing that allows all the things to arise, the non-activity, um, that simply makes apparent whatever is here. Um, that's even beyond the ocean in my water metaphors. And I'm not sure what the blue represents for you, but I appreciate you bringing that in. I love it. Well, great. I'm so glad you got the ball rolling too. Does someone else want to speak to your experience? Anyone want to share what that was like for you or questions you might have?
So I'm still recollecting everything that just transpired in that beautiful space. Thank you so much. But one thing that does come to mind is the feeling of dissolution, of dissolving. Yeah, there were different gates throughout the experience, and each one I felt my body dissolve into a more subtle form, and it was a really beautiful experience.
Huh.
Yeah, it's just reminding me that we're still underwater. It's just less dense. So yeah, really, really beautiful. And yeah, again, thank you so much for opening this space. I find it difficult sometimes to create that space. So thank you so much for just inspiring this moment. And it really impresses me how, again, speaking on the gateways, in the beginning, and usually I don't get past this point when I decide to meditate, is when I enter a place of internal stillness. I'm just amazed by how much movement there is around me. But yeah, towards the end, it became me engulfed in stillness. There was stillness around me and inside of me, and it's a very different experience. I found it to be a very different experience, and both beautiful, but I don't touch so much the stillness around me. So that was really medicine. So thank you.
Thank you so much for your sharing. Yeah.
Thank you. And yeah, I was getting the turquoise vibes as well.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah, Ash, that was so heartwarming. Thank you for sharing. I was really touched by that. Thank you.
Right back at you.
Yeah.
I love the concept of the allowing rather than efforting to bring the stillness in, to allowing it to come toward us. And, be around us. I think I especially sensed the, really the full body experience. Just bringing kind of a relaxation and kind of coming back. I mean, I feel like we're still in the stillness, and the natural world outside my window is feels like saturated too with it. or my perception is wider.
I feel you bringing it in strongly as you pay attention to it. Yeah.
Ah,
Isn't that interesting? The same way when Michael was bringing in like the sense of dissolution, it brought us out into a more dissolved mode. Yeah. Meg, with you, I feel like a vibratory quality. Do you notice anything, or is that just coming through my body that way?
no, it's a piece I'm encountering of late. Very vibratory. It's a little too much, to be honest. Or my perception is.
How's it too much?
That my perception is it's a little bit too much for my body, for my physical body.
Sometimes this is something that's not written in the fine print, or it's only written in the fine print. It feels like at first we grasp for stillness and we're hunting it down, and then there's a kind of flip point where it's our personal will has nothing to do with it, where it's just it's enjoying us as much as we're enjoying it, and then the physical body has to actually acclimate to it. I'm wondering if are those words accurate for what you're experiencing?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it's very powerful, the stillness. I mean, different religions give it other names, right? And what I love about this work is that it makes it so matter of fact and even physiological, and that this actually comes from a medical model where osteopaths were orienting to the inherent healing forces within the body, and they gave certain names to it. I softened it a little today by using these water metaphors, but those of you who have an awareness of biodynamic craniosacral work will recognize that I'm speaking about the cranial wave, the fluid tide, the long tide, the dynamic stillness. And that no matter how you name it, we're being pulled along by this tide. It's an evolutionary tide. It's helping to evolve us. And we can just talk about that very simply as an expansion of awareness. That works for me. Getting more grounded and more open actually lends itself to healing and connecting and knowing very fruitfully. But once we submerge ourselves, once we dissolve ourselves, the beauty has its way with us. The joy, however you experience it, the love, the feeling is love.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes the love is at such a high vibration that the body has trouble catching up or keeping up. Especially at the level that you're describing, Meg.
I very much appreciate you giving me some, light to this. and almost would go to the point of definition. You're defining it a little bit. In my mind, my perception.
I'm a big fan of soothing the mind with information, even though I can only take these descriptions so far, right? And we all invoke them together. I mean, I really felt the power of the group that gathered here to generate contact with these forces that I'm trying to grope toward with words. But it's much more important to enjoy the experience and to actually have your own body felt sense of, oh, this is what it's like for me. And this is the deepest thing I know now. Like this is as wide as my awareness feels comfortable now. Then that's exactly where you should be. No one can push you in these ways. But I felt the co-creation of a field here today that made a lot possible. So I'm glad to know that at least some of you enjoyed yourselves. And sometimes there's no question it can be challenging. Does anybody who had a challenging experience want an opportunity to speak? Or a reality check of any kind? I can't see you all on my screen, so that's why I'm searching to the side here a little bit to see your faces. It's really nice to see you all. I know quite a few of you, and I'm so happy to see some people I don't know. And anyone's welcome to share or check in.
Wanted to say one thing to your point, Jenna. That was really interesting, as far as allowing to be, where you're at. I remember maybe in the last couple of weeks, I was having a particularly really difficult day. And, my heart couldn't expand. And it was just nice to say, okay, well, you know what? I just need to just go to bed and sleep. And that's what I need in this moment. And I'm not going to judge that, it's not happening. And that was just what I needed in the moment, which is just nice to give myself that gift of allowing where I'm at in that moment.
I feel like stillness, the thing that's hardest to communicate about stillness is how it's not a thing. It's actually yourself. And because it's just yourself, it knows what you need. And so it can just guide you to bed. It can just, if I'm having a hard day, it can just be aware that it's a hard day. And if there's something that actually needs repair in my body, it's what's already repairing it. What we're doing here is to actually acclimate to and orient to the forces of healing and perception that are already operating within us 24/7. But we usually don't defer to them. And the more that I keep myself confined, like up here in my control center or here in my fight or flight reflex, the less access I have to this greater source of intelligence and action. And when Michael was speaking about the dissolution, that feels like a description of less and less identification with the mini-me, the small someone that's going to make it all happen. And the craziest, most mysterious thing about this work for me has been that the less I get involved, the more happens. The less I identify myself as a separate someone, the more I can give it over to that which is already doing the doing most efficaciously, most powerfully, without me getting in the way. I work in the healing arts, and often I have absolutely no idea what to do to help someone. And my mind would be inclined to, follow this protocol, use this technique. But the kinds of clients that end up finding their way to me are often people who've already tried all the techniques. They've gone to a million practitioners and they haven't found relief. And what I've discovered is that there is something within them, within all of us, that knows what we need, but we don't always know how to listen to it. And it strikes the rational, contemporary, modern mind as very strange indeed that we could actually get more help by letting go more, by dissolving more. And how to navigate that, I was going to say push and pull, but you're not necessarily feeling it as a push and pull, but how to navigate doing versus non-doing so that you're accountable, responsible, you're really showing up fully as a human being, but you're also allowing yourself to tap back into this other source of information and healing and perception. That dance is so individual, and can be both very frustrating and very beautiful. I feel like some of you are helping me give voice to it today, and I'm so excited to tend to this flame communally, because it really goes against the grain of so many messages that we all get about what it means to be a person, what it means to heal, what it means to know, what it means to do, and how to best serve this planet. Globally, we can look out and see something needs help. And this work has given me a way to feel like, okay, not only can my service take place out in the outer world, but that stillness is actually the most powerful force there is for change out in the world. Resting and deferring to the stillness within is a transformative agency that can actually lend itself to shifting things outside in the world. And I think that's the dissolution that Michael Ash was speaking about, this becoming more and more identified with the world. And yes, dissolving into nothing, recognizing ourselves as nothing, but then ironically, that actually connects us even more deeply with those around us and with the planet itself. Does that make sense? How Hi, Sylvia. I feel like you're wanting to speak to us, but you're not unmuting.
Yes. Okay, I unmuted. Um, from one of the first things that you were saying today about that line, that core that is in the 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 little cells that brings everything and evolves everything. It was that stayed with me and expanded into me and through me the whole time. And and a felt sense of I'm going to misquote this, but perhaps it was Dylan Thomas who, some poet talked about that which causes the green things to grow, and that and that's the sense that I'm feeling of. I've never felt that before. And I'm still feeling that these waves and energy, and it's just kind of going around and down and out and in, and that's, yeah. Thank you so much.
It's so gorgeous. That vital life force that makes the green things grow. I have to look up that poem. That is it. And I'm so grateful for the way that you're so effortlessly translating between stillness and flow. And that's what was, I got really caught up in how am I going to lead this meditation, because I want to talk about stillness, but there's so much interactivity. It felt really paradoxical to me in the lead up to this, and I'm so grateful to know that you experienced the not even the synergy between them, but the identity between them. Like it's no different. The stillness brims over into activity, and the activity is seated, SEATED, in the stillness, and there's just this the stillness enriches our lives in movement, but then the movement falls back into, and in the stillness, it's impossible to put into words because it's a non-dual process, and it's an expression of the fact that they are the same, that this matter of my body and the non-physical matrix that my body emerges out of, that's the stillness. And they are no different. And to think that we can actually experience the truth of that is just astonishing. And that's why a lot of the territory I'm covering here today has been spoken about philosophically. But to actually experience the truth of it through this body is pretty mind-blowing. Can you say that quote one more time for us, Sylvia, about the green things growing?
I wish I could. And it, um, I'm sorry. I can't. It's not gonna. It's something like that which causes. No, I can't. But that's okay. I will. I can say this, that here's a metaphor for. I felt that at the beginning of this meditation, when you spoke about, and I don't know why I'm this little line in that which evolves to become a human, I felt like a bell was struck, and that it just rang and vibrated through. Oh, thank you. Yes, thank you. The force through which the green fuse drives the flower. Thank you, Lisa. Yes, and thank you, late Dylan Thomas. Yeah, so I just felt like a bell was struck, and that the ripples and vibrations continue.
That's the perfect metaphor, because like we were talking about vibration earlier, the bell is struck and we're still vibrating. And one of my teachers calls the stillness the unstruck sound. The unstruck sound. And that's exactly this crazy thing we're trying to express here. We're the vibration of the bell, we're the struck sound. But if you actually go back to the template, back to the unmanifest level, the unstruck sound, that is the stillness.
I think it's really important to emphasize what you did, that the word stillness doesn't mean motion or rest, that it's beyond those categories.
Linda, there you are. Hi. Yes, that it's beyond the
And I think that's the most important thing, that because the word stillness is probably inappropriate because it feels like everything comes to a stop, and that's where you were. So just to say it isn't in motion and it isn't in rest, right, it goes beyond those two categories, feels really important to me.
Yeah, it's so good that you named that. And
well, you did actually, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's my pet peeve about
the word
stillness.
The sun just came out when I said that, when you said that. Yeah, we have to come up with a different word.
Yeah.
Because stillness really does insinuate or suggest that everything comes to a halt, and that's not what it is. It's in back of that. It's really in back of that, and it's always in back of stillness and rest. I mean, motion and rest, right?
If I can just come in and say that what I feel when I'm in stillness is that everything has come to it's basically like bathing in water or without moving. It's sort of like treading, just sort of floating, I guess, and there's no form. As soon as I have a thought, there's a form, but I noticed, because I just picked up and went to have a cup of tea, and I thought, can I be still while I'm actually in action at the moment? And so I was experiencing that. And I actually could feel it, because I was allowing myself to sort of float at the same time in a sense of formlessness. And still, I was still able to see what I was doing, but I was not attaching to what I was doing because I was floating. So I don't know exactly what I'm saying. It's just that to me, there's a sense of like I don't know, at the same time, I see the universe with no sense of pull or push or whatever. I see this sort of floating astronaut, and I feel at the same time that floating body in the ocean, like on a beautiful day, I'm seeing the blue sky and I'm seeing my body just sort of float and no resistance. And when I go to sleep now, it seems like my best way of going to sleep is just sort of when I feel that all of the stuff, all that, those fuses, all those little things that just come at me, I feel like I just sort of go, I don't know, I let them sort of bathe also in that stillness. I allow them to be in it and to just, and they somehow dissolve, and next thing I know, I'm asleep. I'm thinking, wow, this seems to be working every time now. I can't believe this, and I'm not forcing it. And I'm also uncomfortable because I'm thinking, God, this is so intense in my brain. How am I ever going to get to sleep? Somehow, I don't know, the two are coexisting. And one seems to take over, I hate that word, but one seems to predominate, which is that stillness that sort of dissolves the edges of the thoughts or something. Sorry, thank you.
Great, thank you. I've never heard anyone talk about going to sleep that way, but I like that you're bringing that in, because the way we fall asleep is another good metaphor, because you can't make yourself go to sleep. And I like how it piggybacks on what Linda was saying about the importance of noticing that you don't have to be still to recognize this stillness that we're talking about today. The body looks so still in sleep, but there's lots of activity happening, and awareness can be very, very bright even when you're sleeping. My internet connection is unstable. Can people hear me? Oh, and even though we're going out of time, the clock is telling me that we're going to run out of time. So, falling asleep, falling in love, these activities that that widen awareness, that amplify love, that amplify a sense of interconnection and interweaving of the different worlds. They're all really wonderful metaphors. What's so magical for me about stillness is that I can be perfectly here with you, in the world, and that I can bring the stillness forward. Does that make sense? So I love it that we're ending on this note, because I really want to invite you all to cultivate that sense of stillness, whatever channels it comes through for you, and then to actually bring it out into the world, because it really is love. It really is something that's beyond duality. It's not about stifling activity. It's actually about letting the stillness course through whatever activity you're doing, whether it's making a cup of tea or anything out in the world, including social justice and like all the kind of community endeavors that we need to do to help support this planet and our human and living community. So I'm really grateful to you all. I don't take for granted that people would show up to talk about stillness, and it makes me so glad in my heart that there's so many of you who are interested in this topic. Please keep in touch with me. Let me know how to support your own explorations, and I can't wait to see you again. Thank you. Love to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all.